reactive to what you don't know. So you're just going off of like impulses, like Denise said. And then you criticize yourself as if you've got something wrong with you and you really don't. Does that
Yes, you're right.
Okay, so I'm looking at your your history. You gained 20 pounds this year alone.
Yep.
Excuse me. Let me preface that based on what you've written here. And there's probably more, but these are the main things. You sold a house, bought a house, moved, new school, new job, marriage discontent, getting counseling for that. And that's what happened this year. You know, so we can see that this was a very stressful year for you. It really tested you as a person, you as a mom, and you as a spouse. Mm-hmm. It was a really struggle for you.
It was.
So the other thing I noticed, you know, in this history is that you undereat. You're very aware that you undereat. Sometimes that probably you're dieting, but also you get really busy. And so you tend to get super, super, super hungry. And then by the time you actually have dinner, you're starving, you're overeating, and you're cleaning the plate. Mm-hmm. And we were just talking about that there's more than just, I got to clean my plate. That is actually the least of your concern. Most of what you're doing is you're going off of a dialogue in the head about how you feel bad about over-consuming. You might as well eat it all. And then you sit in here, I'll end up overeating and hurrying to finish. Oh, God, where did I see this? Cleaning my plate, even if I'm stuffed. Mm-hmm. So you're stuffed and you're still continuing to eat. How much of that is because you're in your mind say, you know what? I'll just start over tomorrow. I'm going to go ahead and finish all of this food. I feel like crap anyways about overeating. So let's just get it all in now because I will fix the damages tomorrow. Yeah. Or in a week from now. Or in the future.
Yeah. Or I've already overeaten. I might as well just finish.
Correct. I might as well, because if there's anything left over, then I'm going to overeat it tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's what happens. This is totally normal. You should not feel bad about that. Based on the view you have, that is what happens. How many of you do that yourselves? And then you beat yourself up. You shouldn't beat yourself up. If this is what you do, if you have guilt over consumption, you're going to overeat. If you didn't have any guilt, if you didn't criticize or judge how much you were eating or the sense of fullness, would you continue to eat? Mm-mm. I know. So what's the problem? The food or the guilt? Is it the guilt or the criticisms? You know? So, yeah. And part of that sounds like you have been dieting for a long time. How long have you been dieting?
Off and on since I was in college, so.
You're 39, so it's been 19 years?
Yeah.
18 years. You've done the cabbage soup diet, grapefruit diet, dextran, fat counting, calorie counting, Weight Watchers.
I've done Weight Watchers a lot.
Yeah,
and
that's
it works
probably...
every time I do it.
It doesn't work. I'm sorry.
I lose weight every time I do it.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the...
I lose weight every time I do it. But as soon as I stop, I gain the weight right back.
Stop meaning break your rules. Break the counts, break the points.
Yeah.
Then you feel bad. Then you say, you know what, I'll fix this later.
Yeah.
Do you remember while you're going through all of that control, because you're in that controlled environment, you're looking for a reward. You get your reward, you feel fabulous, right?
Yep.
Then... And the whole time you need the reward. Because if you didn't get a reward, you wouldn't have continued, right?
Right.
So you get the reward, and what do?
Quit.
And then you don't care about the reward. Right. You're actually okay if it completely goes away. So you don't care about your weight gain. So is your weight the problem?
No.
It isn't, is it? It's not.
It isn't.
I know. Weight really is just the outcome of this relationship you're having with food.
It's totally terrible.
Well, don't criticize it. It is what happens when you're using food to gratify some emotional need. Let's go a little deeper. Where is this emotional need coming from? Think about how you feel about food and why you need to use it as to feel gratified. Is that because you're feeling restricted with food? Think about how often you overeat. Is it usually to compensate for a restriction?
Yes.
So now let's go to the next layer down. You're restricting food because of what? Because you feel bad about your body.
And overeating. Yep.
Well, to compensate for overeating. But when you first started restricting food, it wasn't because of overeating. It was because you felt bad about your body. That was when you were, what, 19?
Yeah. Yep.
And so how do you feel about your body today compared to when you were 19?
It's not even as good as it was.
So, isn't that crazy? Think about that. If you could have the body you had at 19.
That'd be all right.
Actually, it wouldn't matter because you'd still have the same flawed idea. Because the body isn't the problem. It's the way you view your body. It's based on a body image or a body concept. Even at that weight, to you, you'd be like, oh my God, to be there would be amazing. But the likelihood that you'll be okay with that is very slim. Because you have to still get better. You're never good enough. So that's the concept you're actually using is, my body determines my value. It determines my placement in society. It's a visual of who I am. Therefore, if I don't present myself in a way that people are attracted to, then I am not as valuable. When did that start for you? Junior high?
Yeah, a long time.
Yeah, it's usually junior high when we start to really apply
grade.
all that crazy. It's when we start to apply our social standards, and socially the standards are unattainable. You know that, right?
Absolutely.
They airbrush, they change, they literally remove people's hamstrings and adductors in videos, so they don't have there's this huge amount of space between their legs that doesn't really exist in real human beings. I mean, it's actually humorous, but it's not humorous just because people buy into it. Like, we really honestly look at that and go, I just want that space between my legs. You know how many people come in here and say that? I'm like, that isn't actually human. So they have this idea in their head of what they need to be to feel good about themselves. And when you think of that, what is it that it would give you? What is the feeling that you think you would get when you look perfect?
Worth.
Besides worth, what is it? There's a sense, what most people get is a sense of freedom. It's almost like I could be that popular girl that has no limits in life. Right? Yeah. There's a real picture involved with wearing certain things and being beautiful. It's just so wrong. You know that.
I do.
So for you, this extra weight that you gained this year as a result of the insecurity you felt in your life, and it was made worse by the fact that you're gaining, because wouldn't you say that the more you gain, the worse it got?
Yes.
That's the body image. That's why that's the problem. It's the image is getting further and further away than your ideal. So there's a lot more guilt and a lot more shame as you go away. So if your ideal is here, the further away you get, the worse the shame, guilt, and fear becomes. So you become stricter and stricter and stricter in direct proportion to that fear. And all of that rigidity feeds into binging, which occurs more often as you get further away from the image. So what makes you think that this protocol is going to get rid of that image in your head? Because the image is what's causing the problem. Wouldn't you agree?
I do.
So the question I have for you is, can you love your body right now as it is? Because the test, if you decide right now that the way you look, the way your body is shaped and formed, if you accept it as your ideal, this is your ideal. If you're okay with it and you come to grips with that, that your life should not be centrally focused on how you look, right? And how much body fat you have. So if you accept your body right now what does your life, where does it go? What does it focus on? Think about how much you focus on your weight and your looks. What percentage of your day goes into this idea of look religion?
Wow. Yeah, I wouldn't.
Why are you waiting anymore? You're wasting your time. You don't have much time with this life.
Huh.
Would you want your children to waste their life with this concept? Well, what are you modeling to them?
Right.
So can you accept your body right now? It's 40 pounds over what it should idealistically be. What would you want your children to feel like?
It was fine.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Well, what would happen if you stopped worrying about your weight? Most people fear that then they'll go binge their brains out. But you're basing that on is this insatiable appetite that you have because of the impending diet. You take away the diet, you take away the insatiable appetite. So actually, if you stop caring, if you stop caring relative, okay, this is the key, because you can care about your body and love it, but relative to the body image disorder or the idea of what you're supposed to look like to be happy, right? Mm-hmm. That's what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. If you get rid of that concept, now how do you eat? Because you don't have weight to lose, right? Now how do you eat? You're not going to go on another diet.
Right.
So there's no feasting before the famine. So all of a sudden you're kind of like, oh, there's no pull. There's nothing, I don't need to restrict and I don't need to overconsume. It's kind of weird and vulnerable at the same time. Right?
Right.
So you're left with this weird nothingness, almost like you just got set free and you could go anywhere you want, right? So do you see where all of a sudden, when did this, just about 7th grade, got really bad at 19?
Yeah.
So if you could go back to 19 and start over, would you enlist in a diet?
No.
I know, because it's so bullshit, isn't it?
Yeah.
And they take full advantage of your insecurity with your body image. It is such a scammy, lack of integrity industry. It is really kind of like shaming.
Yeah.
When you look at it, you've bought into that for how long?
20 years.
So really quick, go back to your body right now. If you can allow yourself to just love your body unconditionally, take the conditions out, because your conditions are flawed first off, right? Mm-hmm. It's not even realistic. You have some image of what you had when you were in 7th grade or even 19, and it may not be realistic, and it's not going to be attainable. And not only that, but you've associated that look based on a certain weight.
Right.
So you don't worry about the weight. You're going to go to the goal. You're going to go to the weight, and you're going to look at your body and go, oh, I don't look the same. This isn't good enough yet. It just never ends.
Right.
So appreciate your image now. Just accept it, love it, as if this is the body you're going to have the rest of your life, right? Then eat as if you're a child again. That's when you're hungry. Use your body should be your gauge, right? So if you don't care about your weight and this whole concept of body image, can't you just let go then of all these controls and just take the risk of when I'm hungry, I'll eat. And when hunger is gone, I'm going to stop. I don't need to finish my plate. I'm not going to be starved by another diet. So it doesn't make sense to even finish the plate. Right?
Yeah.
If you don't get rid of that image in your head, you're going to control and you're going to conflict with your body. Right. Because your body doesn't necessarily work the way you need to get rid of insecurity.
Then what about all the settings that you're in where, and for me it's, I don't want to hurt someone's feelings by not eating, if I'm not hungry.
Well, you need to get over someone else's feelings. Why are they more important than your body? Really? So you're going to let other people's eating disorders determine when and how much you eat. Because they have an emotional issue force feeding you to feel good about themselves. There is a graceful way to not accept food. It's, I'm not hungry now. Can I take this and eat it later? I mean, you have all the answers. Everything you're saying, but are all indications of what you don't want to give up or don't want to deal with. And when you really get over this thing that you're playing with, this diet and body image issue, there is nothing that you will do to hurt yourself anymore. no one else's feelings are important enough for you to damage your body. You know, and think about it. If you don't accommodate to other people forcing you to eat, well, you have to have a diet if you're going to do that. You have to have a diet in your pocket. So then think about what would happen as a snowball effect to just that alone.
Right.
You have guilt, you have shame, screw it, I'll eat it all. Then you have to restrict the next day. Then it's just, you get this, you're living in this insanity. You tell me what you should do when someone offers you food and you're not hungry. What should you do?
You're not hungry.
You figure it out, and you'll figure it out relative to your motivation to be out of that craziness. It is the way it is. It's like quitting smoking. What do you do when someone else is smoking around you? Do you feel bad when they offer you a cigarette and you say no?
Nope.
Do you see what this takes? But if someone really wants to smoke a cigarette, they're quitting to please other people. What do you think happens when they get offered a cigarette? They feel like, well, I don't want to hurt their feelings, right?
Right.
That's just a way for you to excuse what you really want to do. Oh, I just hit it.
You're good.
Well, I have done this before. You don't memorize this in a book. It's too detailed to memorize. I mean, but it is yours. It is not mine. I know what it took for me, and I had a very extreme environment. Yours isn't necessarily as extreme. You don't necessarily have death impending in the next couple days, you know? So you can take your time and lollygag around with this game, or you can just say, you know what, I'm going to treat this as if I'm divorcing this relationship with food. What you need to be aware of what it's going to take then for you to deal with stress, deal with arguments, deal with moving again in your life, deal with changing schools again. I mean, think about what you just went through. And the stress you experienced, would you agree, was because you didn't feel you could handle whatever you were having to take on?
Absolutely.
So it isn't necessarily what you're doing or what's going on. It's your perception of what you can handle.
Yeah.
Now that you've been through it, would you say that all of your fear in reaction to it was just bullshit?
Yes.
Because you can totally handle it. So if you were given the scenario again, there's stuff you wouldn't stress out about.
Right.
Isn't that just the beautiful evolution of life? So you have to look at when you feel stressed or unsure of what you can handle, you have to let yourself just deal and do it. You don't need something to protect you. Learn from this experience because you'll repeat it again in a bigger scenario. And ultimately, by using food as your crutch, you really didn't get to develop a true sense of confidence in the moment of it. You can see it in hindsight.
Right.
Could you imagine what it would feel like to be able to use that emotional, like, go into the vulnerability and go through it and to be like, holy shit, I did that without a crutch? What would that feel like?
Right.
Even bigger. It's humongous.
Yeah.
And then the next time you have a stress, you're less likely to divert your attention and more likely to go right into it. Go into the eye of the storm because you need to get this figured out because you're going to have to deal with it later. Either way, you're going to have to figure it out. So I can do it now while it's fresh and there, or I can wait until we're all in denial, you know, and then go back and try to remember the situation.
Right.
So, you know, that's a really important thing you have to look at when you're about to get rid of eating outside of hunger. I mean, how much do you use food and alcohol to protect you from life that you're in denial about? Quite a bit.
Yeah.
20 pounds worth in 1 year.
Yep.
So, you just get your do-over. Start over. Don't expect life to be easy because you know it's not. But it's harder if you don't go into it and accept what the circumstances are. Do you have any questions for me? Do you have any questions about the protocol?
The only apprehension or concern I had is related to business travel. So whether or not I could do the protocol even though I'm not local all the time for the next.
Yeah, it really is a matter of being prepared, talking to, you know, your restaurant, letting them know that you're on a medically supervised protocol. Don't say I'm on some weird diet. Just say I'm on a medically medically supervised protocol. I cannot have fat. So make sure that my shrimp is boiled, not grilled in oil, that your chicken, the other thing you have to be aware of is that you're going to have less control, not only of what it's cooked in, but quantity. So this is where using your hunger is great insurance. Because you might not be able to perfectly quantify the food that you're getting from a restaurant, but by getting your hunger from it, like really getting in tune to how your body responds to the food and practicing that in advance, you're going to have more confidence going in an environment where you don't know the quantities.
Okay.
So I wouldn't, if you can ask them for quantity, go for it. But if you just say, I cannot have oil, bring me some sliced tomatoes with basil, sea salt, and shrimp or salad, whatever, then don't worry about the quantity, base everything on, okay, hunger is done. And it may not take very much, so you kind of are going to have to fake push around the food. The other thing is cocktails and a bar setting. Get, some people carry around liquid stevia. There's like a vanilla flavor, caramel flavor, and they put a drop in you just ask for a martini glass with carbonated water with a lime. Put a little drop of stevia. No one knows you're not drinking. Not that you care. You shouldn't care what anybody else thinks, but sometimes the ambiance of holding that glass and just being part of the social environment, you need to be prepared. You have to have a plan in your head for those environments. So in order for you to have a plan for those environments, you have to go into your mind and go, what is going to be very difficult? What am I going to struggle with? And you find it out. Then you find a solution ahead of time.
Okay.
And then you practice it in your head. And then you practice what is it going to feel like to be able to do all that? And in the future, what do you learn? That you don't have to constantly go with the flow of the culture, which is excessive. You can go into those environments where everybody else is over-consuming and have some autonomy. I'm not hungry. I'll wait. But in the meantime, I'll have a fake cocktail, or you just wait. Anything else? With the travel, it's a lot easier to use the sublingual tablets just because there's no refrigeration. Did Denise talk to you about that? The injectables have to be refrigerated.
Okay.
And you're just and you need to be able to have a disposal of those needles. You don't put them in the trash. So it is a little more difficult. It's not impossible. People do it all the time. You just have to be aware of that refrigeration, carrying your needles and your HCG. Some people pre-fill their needles if it's only a few days, making sure they're always in an ice pack so they never get too warm. So you really have to think about what you want to do. Again, the tablets don't have to be refrigerated. They dissolve under the tongue, so they don't really get active until they mix with the saliva. So they don't have to be refrigerated. Anything else? Okay.